The absolute worst moment of Claire's life wasn't when she found the texts on Trevor's phone. It wasn't when he told her he was leaving. It wasn't even when he cleaned out their joint bank account the morning after their divorce was finalized. The worst moment was right now, sitting in a dead car in the parking lot of an upscale restaurant, watching her 6-year-old twin daughters press their faces against the window, asking why they couldn't go inside and eat like Daddy promised. Except Daddy wasn't coming. He'd canceled 20 minutes ago via text. Something came up with work. Next weekend for sure. Claire knew what something meant. It meant the woman he'd left her for wanted to do something else tonight. It meant her daughters, Nia and Zara, didn't matter enough for him to keep one simple promise. "Mama, I'm hungry," Nia said softly from the back seat. Her sister Zara had gone quiet, which was always worse than complaining. "I know, baby. Mama's figuring it out." Claire's voice cracked as she stared at her phone. $3.16 in her checking account. Trevor had taken everything else that morning, even though the divorce decree said he couldn't. But lawyers cost money she didn't have and he knew it. She turned the key again. Nothing. The car had been making strange noises for weeks, and now it had finally given up, just like everything else in her life. Claire put her head on the steering wheel and let the tears come. She'd held them back all day at her terrible waitressing job, held them back when her landlord called about late rent, held them back when Trevor's text came through. But now, in this parking lot, with her babies hungry and her car dead and $3 to her name, she couldn't hold anything back anymore. "Mama, don't cry," Zara whispered. "We're not that hungry." That made it worse. Her daughters were trying to comfort her. 6 years old and already learning to make themselves smaller, to need less, to protect their mother's feelings. "We can share crackers at home," Nia added, though Claire knew the cracker box was empty too. Through her tears, Claire saw the restaurant entrance. Couples walked in laughing, dressed nicely, ready for their Friday night dates. She was supposed to be one of them tonight. Her friend had set her up on a blind date with some guy named Ethan. Claire had said yes in a moment of optimism, thinking maybe Trevor taking the girls would give her one evening to feel normal again. She'd even put on a nice blue dress from before the twins were born. It still fit barely. She'd done her makeup in the rearview mirror after dropping the girls at Trevor's apartment. And then his text came. And then her car died. And now she was a crying mess in a parking lot with her daughters, unable to even get them home. Her phone buzzed. Probably Ethan wondering where she was. Claire didn't even want to look. What was she supposed to say? "Sorry, can't make our blind date because my ex-husband destroyed my life and my car is dead and I have $3 and I'm a complete disaster of a human being?" She watched another couple walk into the restaurant. The woman wore a red dress that probably cost more than Claire's rent. The man held the door for her, his hand on the small of her back. Claire tried to remember the last time Trevor had touched her that way, with care instead of obligation. She couldn't remember. "Mama, that man is looking at us," Nia said suddenly. Claire looked up, wiping her eyes quickly. A tall man in a dark gray suit stood near the restaurant entrance, looking toward her car. He held his phone, seemingly confused, then looked back at her vehicle. Great. Now some stranger was going to see her at her absolute lowest point. The man started walking toward her car. Claire's heart sank. She didn't have the energy for confrontation or pity or whatever this was about to be. She just wanted to disappear. He knocked gently on her window. Claire rolled it down an inch, trying to compose herself. "I'm fine. We're fine. Just having car trouble." "Are you Claire?" he asked. She blinked. "How do you know my name?" "I'm Ethan. We were supposed to." He gestured toward the restaurant. "I got here early and saw you sitting here. Your friend sent me a photo so I'd recognize you." Of course. The blind date. Claire wanted to melt into her seat and cease to exist. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "Something came up. I was about to text you." Ethan glanced at the girls in the back seat, then back at Claire's tear-stained face. His expression wasn't judgmental, just concerned. "Is your car broken down?" "It's fine. We're fine." The lie felt hollow even as she said it. "Mama's car won't start," Zara announced helpfully from the back. "And we were supposed to have dinner with Daddy but he canceled and now we can't go home." "Zara?" Claire's face burned with embarrassment. Ethan's expression softened. "That sounds like a really hard evening." "We're managing," Claire said, though tears threatened again. "You should go inside. I'm sure you can still make another reservation or something." "Actually, my date just canceled on me too," Ethan said. Claire looked up at him in confusion. "Just got the text. Apparently something came up on her end." He shrugged. "So I'm standing in a parking lot with nowhere to be and you have car trouble." Can I at least call you a tow truck? I don't have money for a tow truck. The words came out before Claire could stop them. She immediately regretted her honesty, but she was too tired to pretend anymore. Ethan was quiet for a moment. What if I covered it? Just to help you out. I don't take charity from strangers. What if we're not strangers? Ethan said. We were supposed to have dinner tonight anyway. How about this? Let me help with the tow truck and we can grab something to eat. You can consider it our first date just with 2 additional guests. He smiled at the girls through the window. Nia and Zara stared back at him with wide eyes. Claire wanted to say no. She wanted to protect her pride, what little remained of it. But Nia shifted in her seat and Claire heard her stomach growl. Why would you do that? Claire asked quietly. Because it looks like you've had the kind of day where someone should help, Ethan said simply. And because those 2 look hungry and I know a place that makes really good milkshakes. Milkshakes. Nia perked up immediately. Claire closed her eyes. She was so tired of being strong, so tired of figuring everything out alone. And this stranger was offering help without making her feel small about needing it. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Ethan pulled out his phone. I'll call the tow company. There's a good mechanic about 2 miles from here. We can have it taken there and they can look at it tomorrow. As he made the call, Claire watched him through the window. He spoke clearly and confidently, giving the location and making arrangements like it was the simplest thing in the world. Like helping a crying woman and her 2 kids in a parking lot was just what people did on Friday nights. When he finished, he opened her car door carefully. They'll be here in 15 minutes. Why don't we wait inside where it's comfortable? Claire gathered her purse and helped the girls out of the car. They looked uncertain, staying close to her legs. I'm Ethan, he said, crouching down to their level. What are your names? I'm Nia and that's Zara, Nia said. We're twins but we don't look the same. I can see that. You're both very pretty like your mom. Nia giggled. Zara remained skeptical, watching him carefully. They walked toward the restaurant entrance. Claire caught sight of her reflection in the glass door. Her makeup was ruined, her eyes red and puffy. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman who'd been crying in a parking lot. But when Ethan held the door open and smiled at her, there was no pity in his eyes. Just kindness. After you, he said. And for the first time in a very long time, Claire felt like maybe everything wasn't completely falling apart. Maybe just for tonight something might actually be okay. The restaurant was nicer than anywhere Claire had been in years. Soft lighting, cloth napkins, a menu without prices listed. The kind of place where people came for anniversaries and celebrations, not for emergency dinners with their kids after their car broke down. The hostess looked at their group with barely concealed confusion. A man in an expensive suit, a woman in a wrinkled dress with ruined makeup, and 2 small children in school clothes. Table for 4, Ethan said smoothly. Something in a quiet corner if you have it. Of course, Mr. Harrison. The hostess's entire demeanor changed when she recognized him. Right this way. Claire filed that information away. He was a regular here. This was his world, not hers. They followed her to a booth near the back. Nia and Zara climbed in on one side and Claire slid in beside them. Ethan sat across from them, accepting menus from the hostess with a warm thank you. The kids' menu has some good options, Ethan said, handing a colorful menu to the girls. They make really good chicken fingers here. And the milkshakes are amazing. Nia grabbed the menu eagerly, but Zara leaned close to Claire. Mama, is this too expensive? She whispered. Claire's heart broke a little more. 6 years old and already worried about money. Don't worry about that tonight, sweetie, Claire whispered back, though she had no idea how she'd handle this bill if Ethan changed his mind about paying. Everything here is great, Ethan said, apparently not hearing the exchange. I come here a lot for business dinners. The chef is fantastic. A waiter appeared with water glasses and a basket of bread. The girls' eyes locked onto the bread like they hadn't eaten in days. Which Claire realized with shame, they'd only had cereal for breakfast and peanut butter sandwiches for lunch. Go ahead, Claire said softly. Nia and Zara each took a piece, trying to be polite but clearly starving. They ate slowly, carefully like they'd been taught. Good manners even when hungry. Trevor had at least helped with that back when he still cared. So, Ethan said, looking at the girls with genuine interest, tell me about yourselves. What grade are you in? First grade, Nia said around a mouthful of bread. We're in different classes though because Zara kept helping me with my work and the teacher said that wasn't allowed. I wasn't helping, Zara corrected. I was just telling you the answers when you got stuck. Ethan smiled. That sounds like helping to me. That's what the teacher said, Zara admitted. What's your favorite subject? Ethan asked. Reading, they said simultaneously, then looked at each other and giggled. Claire watched the interaction, feeling something strange in her chest. Trevor had never talked to the girls like this, like they were actual people whose thoughts mattered. He'd always been on his phone or distracted, counting down the minutes until they went to bed. The waiter returned for their order. Ethan ordered first, something expensive sounding that Claire didn't recognize. Then he looked at the girls. What sounds good to you? Can we really get milkshakes? Nia asked, looking at Claire for permission. Tonight you can, Claire said, though it physically hurt to let someone else buy her children dinner. Both girls ordered chicken fingers with fries and chocolate milkshakes. Claire ordered the cheapest thing she could find on the menu, a simple pasta dish. When the waiter left, Ethan leaned back in his seat. Your friend told me you worked in HR before. Is that what you're doing now? Claire hesitated. She told her friend she was between jobs, which was a nice way of saying she was waitressing at a diner and barely making rent. I'm currently in food service, Claire said carefully. The HR position didn't work out after my divorce. I'm looking for something in my field again. It wasn't entirely a lie. She did look at job postings sometimes, late at night when she couldn't sleep. But every HR position required flexibility she didn't have and childcare she couldn't afford. That's a tough transition, Ethan said. How long ago was your divorce finalized? 3 months. The words came out bitter. 3 months since it was official, 6 months since Trevor moved out, 8 months since she found out about the affair. Daddy lives with Miss Rachel now, Nia offered. She has 3 kids too, but they're older. Claire wanted to disappear under the table. Nia, let's not talk about Daddy right now, she said quietly. Sorry, Mama. Nia went back to her bread. Ethan didn't push, which Claire appreciated. Instead, he started telling a funny story about his own childhood, about the time he and his sister tried to build a treehouse and ended up with something that looked more like a pile of wood in a tree. The girls laughed, and slowly Claire felt herself relaxing. Just a fraction. Just enough to take a real breath. Their food arrived, and the milkshakes were as good as promised. Nia and Zara's faces lit up with genuine joy, the kind of pure happiness that reminded Claire why she fought so hard every day. This is the best milkshake ever, Zara declared. Better than the ones Daddy gets us? Nia asked. Daddy never gets us milkshakes, Zara said matter-of-factly. He always says they're too expensive. Claire stabbed at her pasta, trying not to think about how Trevor always had money for his own wants, just never for his daughter's needs. Well, you're welcome to come back anytime, Ethan said. This is my favorite restaurant. Do you come here on lots of dates? Nia asked with the blunt curiosity of a 6-year-old. Nia. Claire's face burned. But Ethan just laughed. Sometimes. Though usually not with such interesting company. They ate in comfortable quiet for a while. Claire noticed Ethan didn't hover or make a big deal about paying. He just let them eat, let the girls enjoy their food, let Claire have a moment where everything wasn't a crisis. Halfway through dinner, Claire's phone buzzed. Trevor's name appeared on the screen. Heard you got a new boyfriend. That was fast. Who's watching my kids? Claire's hands shook as she read the message. How did he even know? Had he driven by the parking lot? Was he watching her? Everything okay? Ethan asked quietly. Fine, Claire lied, putting her phone face down on the table. But Ethan's expression said he didn't believe her, even though he didn't push. When they finished eating, the waiter brought the check. Ethan handed over a credit card without even looking at the total. Claire tried not to think about how that one meal probably cost more than she made in 2 days of work. Thank you, she said as they stood to leave. Really? I don't know how to repay you for this. You don't need to repay me, Ethan said. Consider it a very unconventional first date. This wasn't a date, Claire said firmly. This was you being kind to someone having a terrible day. There's a difference. Fair enough. Ethan smiled. Though for the record, I've been on way worse actual dates than this one. Despite everything, Claire almost smiled back. They walked outside to wait for the tow truck. It arrived 10 minutes later and Ethan handled everything. He gave the driver instructions, paid for the tow and next day service, and got a card from the mechanic. They'll call you tomorrow afternoon with an estimate, Ethan explained. If it's something simple, they can probably fix it same day. And if it's not simple? Claire asked, already knowing she couldn't afford complicated. We'll figure it out. Why do you keep saying we? Claire's exhaustion made her blunt. You don't owe me anything. You don't even know me. Ethan was quiet for a moment, watching as the tow truck pulled away with her car. My mom raised me and my sister alone after my dad left. I remember what it looked like when she was trying to hold everything together. I remember the nights she cried in the car because she thought we couldn't hear. Claire's throat tightened. Someone helped her once, Ethan continued. Her boss gave her a promotion she hadn't asked for, paid for better than she was worth at the time. He told her the same thing I'm telling you, we're figuring this out together. And it changed our lives. I'm not looking for charity, Claire said, but her voice lacked conviction. Good. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering help. There's a difference. Ethan pulled out his phone. Let me call you a ride home. I can't afford that either. Then good thing I can. Before Claire could argue, he'd already ordered a car. It arrived within minutes. As they loaded the girls into the back seat, Ethan handed Claire a business card. This has my number. Let me know what the mechanic says tomorrow. And if you need anything before then, call me. Claire looked at the card. Ethan Harrison, CEO, Harrison Tech Solutions. Her eyes widened. You're the Harrison Tech? The company is mine, yes. That's $1 billion company. Give or take. He shrugged. Does that change anything? Claire didn't know how to answer that. On one hand, it explained why he could casually drop money on tow trucks and dinners. On the other hand, what was a billionaire doing on a blind date with a single mom who waitressed at a diner? Why were you doing a blind date? She asked. Someone like you could date anyone. Someone like me is too busy working to meet anyone, Ethan said honestly. My sister set it up. She says I'm going to die alone surrounded by computers if I don't put myself out there. Despite everything, Claire smiled. Your sister sounds smart. She is. Ethan opened the car door for her. Get home safe. Talk tomorrow. Claire climbed in beside her daughters. As the car pulled away, she watched Ethan through the rear window. He stood in the parking lot, hands in his pockets, watching until they turned the corner. I like him, Nia announced. He didn't check his phone once during dinner. He listened when we talked, Zara added. Daddy never does that. Claire pulled both girls close as the driver navigated toward their apartment. She had no idea what tomorrow would bring, or how she'd afford to fix her car, or what Ethan actually wanted from her. But tonight, her daughters had full bellies and genuine smiles. Tonight, someone had helped without making her feel small. And tonight, for the first time in months, Claire thought maybe they'd actually be okay. Claire woke to sunlight streaming through the thin curtains of their apartment and the sound of her daughters giggling in the next room. For one peaceful moment, she forgot about yesterday. Then reality crashed back. Dead car. Empty bank account. Rent due in 3 days. She grabbed her phone from the nightstand. 2 missed calls from the mechanic and 1 text from an unknown number. The text read, "This is Ethan. The mechanic called me since I arranged the tow. Your car needs a new alternator and battery. Already took care of it. Should be ready by noon. No need to pay me back." Claire stared at the message, reading it 3 times. The alternator alone was probably $600. With the battery and labor, maybe $800 total. She typed and deleted 5 different responses before finally settling on, "I can't accept this." His reply came immediately. "Already done. Pick up your car whenever you're ready. They have your number." Claire wanted to scream. Or cry. Or both. She didn't do helpless well, and this man she barely knew had now spent over $1,000 on her in less than 24 hours. She called the mechanic to confirm. Sure enough, everything was paid in full. The car would be ready after lunch. "Mr. Harrison is a good man," the mechanic said. "Told me to make sure everything was running perfect before you picked it up. Checked a few other things too while we were at it. Your brake pads were pretty worn, so we replaced those as well. No charge." "Of course he did," Claire muttered after hanging up. She needed to find a way to pay Ethan back, but first she had a more immediate problem. Getting to work. Her shift at the diner started at 10, and without her car she'd have to take 2 buses that would make her late. She was pulling on her waitress uniform when her phone rang. Ethan's name appeared on the screen. Claire hesitated, then answered. "You shouldn't have paid for my car." "Good morning to you too," Ethan said, sounding amused. "How did the girls sleep?" "Fine. About the car situation. Is it too early to discuss a job opportunity?" Claire froze. "What?" "I meant to mention this last night, but the timing seemed off. My HR director just told me yesterday that one of her managers gave notice. The position needs to be filled quickly. It's senior level, good salary, full benefits. Are you interested? You're offering me a job?" Claire's voice came out sharper than intended. "Is this because of last night?" "It's because I have an opening and you have experience." Ethan's tone remained calm. "I looked up your background after our friend mentioned you. 5 years at Patterson Industries, excellent reviews, promoted twice. You left to have the twins, and when you tried to return, they'd eliminated your position. Does that sound right? How do you know all that? I called Patterson's current HR director. We went to business school together. She said letting you go was one of their biggest mistakes, and if I had a position, I should snap you up immediately. Claire sat down on her bed, processing. This feels like charity. It's not. I wouldn't insult my company by hiring someone who couldn't do the job just to be nice. I need a strong HR manager. You need employment that matches your skills. This is just practical. What's the salary? Ethan named a figure that made Claire's breath catch. It was more than double what she'd made at Patterson. It was more than she'd ever made in her life. That's too much, she said automatically. It's market rate for the position. Actually slightly below, but there's room for growth. I have kids. I can't work late nights or travel. The position is 40 hours a week, flexible schedule as long as the work gets done. Minimal travel, and when necessary we cover childcare costs. Claire tried to find the catch. There had to be a catch. When would I start? Monday if you're available. That gives you the weekend to arrange childcare and get situated. I work at Betty's Diner, Claire said. I'd need to give notice. 2 weeks. That's professional, yes. What if I called Betty and worked something out? I'm sure we could come to an arrangement where you're not leaving her short-staffed. You don't even know Betty. I can be very persuasive. She could hear the smile in his voice. Is that a yes to the job? Claire wanted to say no on principle. She wanted to tell him she didn't need his help or his pity or whatever this was. But when she looked around her cramped apartment with its water-stained ceiling and broken air conditioning, when she thought about Nia and Zara sharing a bedroom that barely fit their bunk bed, when she remembered the fear in her gut about making rent. Yes, she whispered. But I'm paying you back for the car. We can discuss that later. I'll have HR send over the paperwork today. Welcome to Harrison Tech, Claire. He hung up before she could change her mind. Claire sat in stunned silence. 24 hours ago she'd been crying in a parking lot with $3 to her name. Now she had a working car and a job that would change everything. It felt too good to be true. Which meant it probably was. But she couldn't afford to say no. Later that afternoon, Claire took 2 buses to the mechanic shop with both girls in tow. She'd called in sick to the diner, something she never did, but she needed to get her car and process everything that was happening. The mechanic handed over her keys with a smile. Runs like new now. Mr. Harrison said to call him directly if you have any other issues. Of course he did, Claire muttered. She loaded the girls into the car, which did indeed run smoothly. The brakes felt solid. Even the check engine light that had been on for months was off. Where are we going, Mama? Nia asked from the back seat. Good question. Claire had the afternoon off, her car worked, and for once she wasn't in immediate crisis mode. When was the last time that had happened? Ice cream, she decided impulsively. We're getting ice cream. Both girls cheered. At the ice cream shop, Claire let them each pick 2 scoops while she nursed a small cup of vanilla and read through the employment contract Ethan's HR department had emailed. Everything looked legitimate. Excellent benefits, retirement matching, generous vacation time. The salary was real. Her phone buzzed. Trevor. Heard you quit your job. How are you planning to pay child support? Oh wait, you can't afford a lawyer to get child support. Guess the girls are my problem after all. Claire's hands clenched around her phone. Child support. In all the chaos, she'd completely forgotten that Trevor was supposed to be paying her $300 a month and hadn't sent a single payment since the divorce. She typed back, I have a new job. Starting Monday. We're fine. His response came immediately. What new job? HR manager at Harrison Tech. Bullshit. They don't hire waitresses. Check their website in a few days. I'm sure they'll announce new hires. She blocked his number before he could respond. She should have done that months ago. Mama, you're smiling, Zara observed. Am I? Claire touched her face. She was smiling. Actually smiling. Are you happy? Nia asked. You know what? I think I might be. Claire pulled both girls close. Things are going to get better, babies. I promise. That evening she called Ethan. He answered on the first ring. Thank you, Claire said simply. For everything. The car, the job, the dinner last night. All of it. You're welcome. I mean it. I don't know why you're helping me, but thank you. Claire, Ethan said gently, sometimes people just want to help. There doesn't have to be an ulterior motive. In my experience, there usually is. Then I'm sorry your experience has taught you that. He paused. For what it's worth, I think you're going to be excellent at this job. And I'm looking forward to working with you. As my boss. As your boss? He confirmed. Professional boundaries and all that. Good, Claire said, though part of her felt strangely disappointed. Professional is good. See you Monday, Claire. After they hung up, Claire sat on her small couch and looked around her apartment. It was still cramped and worn, but somehow it felt different now. Like maybe it was just temporary instead of permanent. Like maybe, possibly, things really were going to be okay. Nia and Zara were already asleep, full of ice cream and happiness. Claire pulled out her laptop and started researching Harrison Tech, learning everything she could about the company she'd be joining. And for the first time in longer than she could remember, she felt something that might have been hope. Monday morning arrived with Claire standing outside Harrison Tech's downtown headquarters, smoothing down her green blazer for the 10th time. The building was all glass and steel, modern and impressive. Through the windows she could see people moving purposefully through a bright, open lobby. You can do this, she whispered to herself. Her phone buzzed. Her neighbor Mrs. Chen, confirming she'd picked up Nia and Zara from the bus stop and they were happily having snacks. Claire had been terrified about the childcare situation, but Mrs. Chen had volunteered to watch the girls after school for a reasonable rate. Another small miracle in a week full of them. Claire walked through the glass doors into the lobby. A security guard directed her to the 14th floor, HR department. The elevator ride felt like it took forever. When the doors opened, a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a bright yellow dress greeted her immediately. You must be Claire. I'm Patricia, HR director. Welcome to Harrison Tech. Thank you for this opportunity, Claire said, shaking her hand. Ethan speaks highly of you. Says you're exactly what we need. Patricia led her through an open office space filled with natural light. This is the HR floor. We have about 30 people total. You'll be managing a team of 5, handling recruitment, employee relations and benefits administration. They toured the facilities. Break rooms with fully stocked fridges and coffee that didn't taste like dirt. A wellness room for nursing mothers. An actual gym in the building. Conference rooms with views of the city. It was so far from her previous office at Patterson Industries that Claire felt like she'd entered another world. Your office is here, Patricia said, opening a door to a space with windows, a real desk, and a chair that looked comfortable instead of broken. Take some time to settle in. We have new hire orientation at 10, then I'll introduce you to your team this afternoon. Claire set down her bag, barely believing this was real. Her own office. With a door. And windows. Her computer was already set up with her login information. As she powered it on, she noticed a small plant on the corner of her desk with a note. Welcome to the team. Let me know if you need anything. Ethan. Simple. Professional. Thoughtful. Claire spent the morning in orientation learning about company policies, benefits, and culture. Harrison Tech had won awards for workplace satisfaction and diversity. They offered on-site childcare, though the waiting list was long. They had flexible scheduling and generous parental leave. It was everything Patterson had pretended to be but never actually was. At lunch, Patricia invited her to the executive dining room. Claire was nervous until she realized it was just a nicer cafeteria where managers ate. The food was catered and free, which felt absurd after years of packing PB&J sandwiches. Ethan usually eats up here, Patricia said, grabbing a salad. Though he's in meetings all afternoon today. Do you like working for him? Claire asked carefully. He's the best boss I've ever had, Patricia said without hesitation. Fair, direct, actually listens to people. When his father ran this company, it was cutthroat. Ethan changed the entire culture when he took over 5 years ago. His father started the company? Built it from nothing, but he was difficult. Demanding. Ethan is different. He actually cares about the people who work here. Patricia smiled. He told me about meeting you, by the way. Said he met you through a mutual friend. So he hadn't told anyone about the parking lot incident. Claire appreciated that discretion. The afternoon was spent meeting her team. 5 people who seemed competent and welcoming. They showed her current projects, explained ongoing challenges, and made it clear they were relieved to have a new manager after 2 months of limbo. By 5 o'clock, Claire's head was spinning with information, but she felt energized instead of drained. This was actual HR work, the kind she'd loved at Patterson before everything fell apart. She was packing up to leave when someone knocked on her office door. Ethan stood there in a blue shirt with his sleeves rolled up, looking tired but pleased. How was day 1? He asked. Overwhelming in the best way, Claire admitted. Your team is great. Patricia is wonderful. This whole place is impressive. Good. I'm glad it's working out. He leaned against the doorframe. I wanted to check in, make sure you have everything you need. I do. More than I need, actually. There's no such thing. Ethan's expression grew more serious. I also wanted to say, I know this situation is unconventional, but what happens at work stays professional. I'm your boss, you're my employee. Clear boundaries. I appreciate that, Claire said, meaning it. I don't want anyone thinking I got this job for the wrong reasons. You got this job because you're qualified. Anyone who suggests otherwise can talk to me directly. His protective tone surprised her, but Claire pushed the feeling away. Professional boundaries. That's what they both wanted. See you tomorrow, Ethan said, pushing off from the doorframe. See you tomorrow? After he left, Claire gathered her things and headed home. The commute was actually shorter than her drive to the diner had been. She picked up the girls from Mrs. Chen's, who reported they'd been absolute angels. How was your first day, Mama? Nia asked as they walked to their apartment. Really good, baby. Really good. That night, after the girls were asleep, Claire calculated her budget with her new salary. For the first time in months, the numbers actually worked. She could pay rent. She could buy groceries. She could even start saving a little. Her phone rang. A known number. Is this Claire? Yes, who's this? Rachel. The woman's voice was tight with barely controlled anger. I'm dating Trevor. We need to talk about your situation. Claire's stomach dropped. What situation? He told me you're trying to get full custody. That you're poisoning the girls against him. That you're using some rich boyfriend to manipulate the courts. I don't have a boyfriend, Claire said coldly. And I already have full custody. Trevor hasn't paid child support or shown up for visitation in months. That's because you make it difficult. I make it difficult by expecting him to show up when he says he will? Rachel's voice turned sharp. Trevor said you'd be like this. Defensive. Playing the victim. Is there a point to this call? Claire was done being nice to people who believe Trevor's lies. The point is that Trevor wants his daughters in his life. And I have 3 kids of my own. We could make this work as a family if you'd stop being selfish. Claire laughed, though nothing was funny. Trevor canceled on the girls 3 times this month alone. He hasn't asked about school or their health or anything else. But sure, I'm the problem. He's been stressed with work. He's been stressed with work for 6 years. Meanwhile, I've been raising our children alone while he drained our bank account and lied about everything. So forgive me if I'm not interested in making his life easier. You're bitter? I'm honest. There's a difference. Claire took a breath. If Trevor wants to be in the girls' lives, he can call me directly. Until then, please don't contact me again. She hung up before Rachel could respond. Claire's hands were shaking. She'd known Trevor was spinning stories, but hearing them from his affair partner made it real in a different way. He was rewriting history, painting himself as the victim and Claire as the villain. Her phone buzzed with a text from Trevor himself. Rachel said you were rude to her. Keep acting like this and I'll file for custody. See how your new job goes when you're dealing with lawyers. Claire stared at the message. Empty threats. He couldn't afford a lawyer any more than she could. But the thought of legal battles made her nauseous. She took a screenshot of his text and filed it away. If he did try something, she'd need documentation. For now, though, she had a good job, a working car, and 2 happy daughters. Trevor could threaten all he wanted. Claire wasn't the same desperate woman he'd left behind. She was stronger now. And she was done letting him control her life through fear. 3 weeks into her new job, Claire had settled into a rhythm. Morning routine with the girls, work at Harrison Tech, evening pickup, dinner, homework, bedtime. Simple and manageable. For the first time in years, she felt like she was building something stable. She just finished a successful recruitment campaign, filling 3 positions under budget and ahead of schedule. Patricia had complimented her work, and even Ethan had sent a brief but warm email acknowledging her contribution. Claire had seen him around the office, always professional and kind. He'd ask about the girls occasionally, remember small details she'd mentioned. But they maintained appropriate distance. He was her boss. She was grateful for the job. That was all it needed to be. She was leaving work Thursday evening, later than usual after finishing a report, when she noticed someone leaning against her car in the parking garage. Trevor. Claire's heart sank as she recognized his posture, that calculated casual lean that always preceded him wanting something. What are you doing here? She asked, stopping several feet away. Nice car, Trevor said, ignoring her question. Heard you got it fixed. Heard you got a fancy new job too. Things must be going well. They are. What do you want? I want to see my daughters. He pushed off from her car. You've been blocking my calls. You haven't called. Rachel called. Same thing. Rachel is not the girl's parent. If you want to see Nia and Zara, you call me directly and follow the custody agreement. Every other weekend, which you've missed the last 4 times. Trevor's expression hardened. I've been busy. So have I. But I still show up for them every single day. Because you have nothing else. He stepped closer. No social life, no prospects. Just those kids and your little job. Claire refused to back up, though everything in her wanted to. My job pays well enough that I don't need child support anymore. Consider yourself lucky. Lucky. Trevor laughed. I heard about your boss. Ethan Harrison, billionaire playboy. That's who fixed your car, right? Who got you this job? What did you have to do for him? I earned this job with my qualifications. Sure you did. Trevor's voice dripped with sarcasm. And I'm sure he's helping you out of the goodness of his heart. Men like that don't do anything without expecting something in return. You're projecting. I'm being realistic. You think you're special? You're a single mom with baggage. He's slumming until something better comes along. Claire's jaw clenched. She wouldn't let Trevor's poison touch the one good thing that had happened to her. You need to leave, she said quietly. Or what? You'll call your rich boyfriend? Trevor moved closer still. I could make things difficult for you, Claire. File for custody, claim you're an unfit mother. Who do you think they'll believe? You or a concerned father who's worried about his daughter's welfare? A concerned father who hasn't paid child support in 4 months? Who cancels visitation constantly? Good luck with that argument. I have documentation of every time you've made it difficult for me to see them. You have lies. I have text messages where you cancel plans. They stared at each other, the tension thick enough to cut. Claire saw the moment Trevor realized he wasn't going to intimidate her the way he used to. Saw the flicker of anger that followed. This isn't over, he said. Yes it is. If you want to be in the girls' lives, be in their lives. Show up when you say you will. Pay what you owe. Be their father instead of talking about it. Don't tell me how to parent. Then don't threaten me in parking garages. Trevor opened his mouth to respond, but a voice cut through the tension. Is there a problem here? Claire turned to see Ethan walking toward them from the elevator, briefcase in hand. He looked calm but alert, his attention focused entirely on Trevor. Who the hell are you? Trevor demanded. Ethan Harrison. I own this building. His tone was pleasant but firm. You are. I'm her ex-husband. This is a private conversation. In my parking garage? Ethan stopped next to Claire, his presence somehow making the space feel safer. Doesn't seem very private. Trevor's eyes narrowed as he recognized the name. You're the one who's been helping her. I'm her employer. That's the extent of our relationship. Right. Just her employer. Trevor's laugh was ugly. How convenient. Claire is an excellent employee who earned her position through her qualifications. Ethan's voice never rose, but something in it made Trevor take a step back. If you have concerns about custody arrangements, I'd suggest taking them up with the family court system rather than confronting her in parking garages after working hours. I'm talking to my ex-wife. You're done talking to her. Ethan's pleasant expression never changed, but his words carried unmistakable finality. This is private property. If you're not leaving voluntarily, I'll have security escort you out. Trevor looked between them, his expression cycling through anger, jealousy, and finally calculation. This isn't over, he said again, directing it at Claire. The girls deserve better than whatever this is. He stalked toward his car. They watched him pull out of the garage, tires squealing slightly as he turned too sharply. Are you okay? Ethan asked once Trevor was gone. Claire realized she was shaking. I'm fine. He's all talk. Has he confronted you before? Not like that. Usually he just sends threatening texts. You should document everything. If he escalates, you'll want a paper trail. I know. Claire leaned against her car, suddenly exhausted. I'm sorry you got pulled into that. Don't apologize. He's the one who showed up at your workplace. Ethan hesitated. For what it's worth, I meant what I said. You earned your position here. Whatever he tries to claim, everyone who works with you knows the truth. Thank you. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. The parking garage's fluorescent lights hummed above them. Can I follow you home? Ethan asked. Just to make sure he's not waiting somewhere. You don't have to do that. I know. But I'd feel better. Claire wanted to say no, to maintain her independence and pride. But Trevor's appearance had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Ethan followed her car all the way to her apartment building, waiting until she was safely inside before driving away. Claire checked all the locks twice before settling on the couch. Mrs. Chun brought the girls back shortly after. They were full of stories about their day, oblivious to the confrontation in the parking garage. Claire listened and smiled and tucked them into bed, grateful they were safe and happy. Later, alone in her room, she pulled up Trevor's previous texts and started a documentation file. Dates, times, everything he'd said and done. If he tried to make good on his threats, she'd be ready. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ethan: "Lock your doors. If anything feels off, call me immediately. I don't care what time it is." Claire saved his number under favorites just in case. Then she turned off her lights and tried to sleep, though her mind kept replaying the anger in Trevor's eyes and the protectiveness in Ethan's voice. Things were getting complicated. The custody papers arrived 2 weeks after the parking garage confrontation. Claire came home from work to find them taped to her apartment door, official and cold and terrifying. Her hands shook as she read through the legal language. Trevor was filing for joint custody, claiming Claire was unstable, working excessive hours, and exposing the children to inappropriate relationships. He'd listed Ethan by name, suggesting their professional relationship was actually romantic and therefore harmful to the girls' well-being. It was all lies, but it was official lies, printed on legal letterhead with a court date attached. Claire sank onto her couch, the papers crumpling in her grip. She couldn't afford a lawyer. She'd finally gotten her head above water financially, but legal representation cost thousands she didn't have. Trevor knew that. This was exactly what he'd threatened. She called the one person she knew would be honest with her: Patricia. "He's bluffing," Patricia said after Claire explained the situation. "That's what abusive exes do. They file paperwork to scare and control you. But what if he's not bluffing? What if a judge believes him? Then you get a lawyer and fight it. Claire, you're an excellent mother. Anyone can see that." "I can't afford a lawyer." Patricia was quiet for a moment. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Please. Talk to Ethan. He has resources, knows people. He might be able to help." "I can't ask him for more help. He's already done too much. He cares about his employees, especially ones being harassed by vindictive exes. At least think about it." After they hung up, Claire stared at the papers until the words blurred together. She thought about calling her parents, but they'd never supported her marriage to Trevor and would probably say she'd made her bed. Her friends had mostly disappeared during the divorce, uncomfortable with taking sides. She was alone in this. Again. The next morning at work, Claire could barely focus. She kept reading through the custody papers during her lunch break, trying to understand what Trevor was actually asking for and what he might realistically get. A knock on her office door made her jump. Ethan stood there holding 2 coffee cups. "Patricia said you might need this," he said, offering her one. "Did she tell you what happened?" "She mentioned you were dealing with a legal situation. The details are yours to share if you want." He sat in the chair across from her desk. "Or not. Either way is fine." Claire took the coffee, grateful for something to hold. "Trevor filed for joint custody. He's claiming I'm unfit because I work too much and because you and I are involved inappropriately." Ethan's expression darkened. "That's absurd. It's strategic. He knows I can't afford to fight him in court. What does joint custody mean in practical terms? Equal time with the girls. Equal say in all decisions. He'd have them half the time." Claire's voice cracked. "He doesn't actually want them. He's just doing this to hurt me. Then we'll make sure that's clear to the court." Ethan leaned forward. "I have an excellent family law attorney on retainer. She handles personal matters for my executives. I'll put you in touch with her. I can't afford that kind of lawyer. She's already paid for. Employee benefit. Consider it part of your compensation package." "That's not a real benefit." "It is now." Ethan's tone was firm. "Claire, you're dealing with this because of your association with me. Trevor is using your employment here as ammunition. The least I can do is help you fight back." Claire wanted to argue, but exhaustion and fear overwhelmed her pride. "Why do you keep helping me?" "Because I can. Because it's the right thing to do. Because you're a good person dealing with a bad situation that isn't your fault." He pulled out a business card. "This is Amanda Chin. She's won every custody case she's ever taken. Call her today." "Chin." Claire couldn't help but smile slightly through her tears. "I thought you said you don't want that name in the story." Ethan looked confused for a moment, then laughed. "Different Chin. No relation to any characters we've been avoiding." The moment of levity helped. Claire took the card, her fingers brushing against his. Thank you. I don't know how I'll ever repay you for all of this. Be the best HR manager this company has ever had. That's payment enough. After Ethan left, Claire called Amanda. The lawyer answered immediately and scheduled an emergency consultation for that afternoon. Claire left work early, driving to a downtown office building that screamed expensive. Amanda turned out to be a sharp woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Tell me everything, she said, pulling out a legal pad. Claire did. The affair, the divorce, the drained bank account, Trevor's inconsistent parenting, his threats, the parking garage confrontation. She showed Amanda all the text messages she'd documented, every canceled visitation, every late child support payment. Amanda took notes, her expression growing more confident as Claire talked. This is going to be easier than I thought, Amanda said when Claire finished. Your ex-husband has no case. He's documented his own failures repeatedly. But what about his claims about Ethan? Does Mr. Harrison have a romantic relationship with you? No. He's my boss. We're professional. Then it's a non-issue. We'll have Mr. Harrison provide a statement if necessary, clarifying the professional nature of your relationship. Amanda tapped her pen on the desk. Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to file a response to his petition. I'm going to request full documentation of his child support payments, which he hasn't made. I'm going to subpoena his text messages showing his canceled visitations. And I'm going to suggest that if he continues this harassment, we'll be filing for full termination of his parental rights based on abandonment. Can you do that? If he keeps this up? Absolutely. But honestly, I don't think we'll need to. Once he realizes you have competent legal representation, he'll back down. Men like your ex-husband are bullies. They only push when they think they can win. Claire felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, substantial hope. What do I need to do? Document everything. Keep doing what you're doing. Be the excellent mother you clearly are. And let me handle the legal aspects. Amanda smiled. You're going to be fine, Claire? The hearing was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In that time, Amanda worked efficiently, filing motions and gathering evidence. Trevor's lawyer, clearly working for cheap or pro bono, seemed overwhelmed by Amanda's thoroughness. Claire continued working, focusing on the girls, maintaining her professional boundaries with Ethan. But she noticed small things. He'd check in daily, casual questions about how she was holding up. He'd rearranged her schedule so she could attend school events for Nia and Zara. He'd made sure she knew she could take time off for any legal appointments without penalty. You're going above and beyond for her, Patricia commented one afternoon when Ethan asked her to ensure Claire's afternoon was clear for a meeting with Amanda. She's a good employee dealing with a difficult situation. She's more than that and you know it. Ethan didn't respond, but he didn't deny it either. The day of the hearing arrived. Claire wore her best maroon suit, the one she'd bought after her first paycheck from Harrison Tech. Amanda met her at the courthouse, calm and confident. Trevor showed up with Rachel and a lawyer who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Rachel's presence surprised Claire. Was she really that invested in this drama? The hearing was brief. Amanda presented evidence systematically. Trevor's missed child support payments, his canceled visitations, his threatening text messages. She brought up the parking garage confrontation, presenting security footage that clearly showed Trevor initiating the aggressive encounter. Then she called her surprise witness, Rachel. Claire watched in shock as Trevor's affair partner took the stand. She looked uncomfortable, avoiding Trevor's angry stare. Ms. Baker, Amanda began, you live with Mr. Trevor Johnston, correct? Yes. How often do his daughters visit your shared home? Rachel hesitated. They don't. Trevor usually sees them somewhere else. Has he ever brought them to your home? No. In the 6 months you've been living together, has he ever mentioned wanting custody of his children? Not until recently. What changed recently? He found out about Claire's new job. About her boss helping her. Rachel glanced at Claire apologetically. He said if she could move on, he could get revenge by taking the kids. The courtroom went silent. So Mr. Johnston doesn't actually want custody? Amanda asked. I don't think so. I think he wants to hurt Claire. Trevor's lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. Rachel's testimony, coming from someone who had every reason to support Trevor, was devastating to his case. The judge listened to closing arguments, then ruled without much deliberation. Mr. Johnston, your petition for joint custody is denied. Furthermore, you are ordered to begin paying child support as outlined in your divorce decree, with penalties for past due amounts. You will maintain your current visitation schedule of every other weekend, to be exercised only when you provide 24 hours notice. If you miss 3 scheduled visitations in a row, this court will consider a modification hearing to reduce your parental time further. The gavel fell. It was over. Claire could barely breathe. She'd won. The girls were safe. Amanda squeezed her hand. Told you it would be fine. Outside the courthouse, Rachel approached Claire. Trevor had already stormed off. I'm sorry, Rachel said quietly. I didn't know what he was really like until we moved in together. He's not who I thought he was. Thank you for telling the truth, Claire said. Those girls deserve better than this. Rachel walked away and Claire knew she'd never see her again. That evening Claire called Ethan. We won, she said simply. I never doubted you would. His relief was audible. How are you feeling? Like I can finally breathe. Good. Take tomorrow off. Celebrate with the girls. I don't need special treatment. It's not special treatment. It's acknowledging that you just went through something stressful and deserve a break. Claire smiled despite her exhaustion. Thank you, Ethan. For everything. The lawyer, the support, all of it. You're welcome. Now go hug those daughters of yours. Claire did exactly that. She picked up Nia and Zara from Mrs. Chen's, took them for ice cream, and told them they'd never have to worry about leaving Mama again. We weren't worried, Nia said simply. We knew you'd keep us safe. Their innocent faith broke Claire's heart and rebuilt it at the same time. That night, after the girls were asleep, Claire stood on her small balcony looking at the city lights. For the first time since Trevor left, she felt truly free. The legal battle was over. Her job was secure. Her daughters were happy. And somewhere across the city, Ethan was probably still working late, caring about his employees, helping people without asking for anything in return. Claire wasn't ready to think about what that meant. But she was ready to admit that having him in her life, even just as her boss, made everything better. 6 months after the custody hearing, Claire's life had settled into something that felt almost normal. Good normal. The kind where days were predictable in a comforting way instead of a suffocating one. She'd been promoted to senior HR manager with a raise that allowed her to move into a better apartment. Not fancy but clean and safe in a neighborhood with good schools. Nia and Zara had their own bedrooms, both painted colors they'd chosen themselves. Pink for Nia, purple for Zara. Trevor had vanished completely. No calls, no texts, no child support payments. Amanda had filed contempt charges, but Trevor had apparently left the state. His last known address was 3 states over, living with someone new. Rachel had sent Claire a single message months ago. He did the same thing to me. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Claire had wished her well and moved on. At work, things remained professional with Ethan, though their friendship had deepened in subtle ways. He'd started joining the HR team for monthly lunches. He'd remembered the girls' birthday and sent them books, thoughtful ones about strong female characters. He'd asked Claire's opinion on company policies, actually implementing her suggestions. But they maintained boundaries. He was her boss. She was grateful for the opportunity. That was the story they both told themselves. Until the company holiday party changed everything. Harrison Tech's annual party was held at an upscale hotel downtown. Employees were encouraged to bring families, and the company provided childcare in a separate room so parents could actually enjoy themselves. Claire brought Nia and Zara, who were excited to see the decorations and promised treats. They wore matching red dresses that Claire had splurged on, wanting them to feel special. The party was impressive. Open bar, catered food, live music. Claire wore a blue dress she'd bought specifically for the occasion, the first truly nice piece of clothing she'd purchased for herself in years. Patricia whistled when she saw her. Someone's going to have a hard time maintaining professional boundaries tonight. Stop, Claire said, but she was smiling. I'm just saying you look beautiful. And a certain CEO hasn't stopped looking at you since you walked in. Claire glanced toward where Patricia was subtly indicating. Ethan stood across the room talking to shareholders, but his attention kept drifting toward Claire. When their eyes met, he smiled before returning to his conversation. We're just friends, Claire said. Sure you are. Patricia grabbed champagne from a passing waiter. For the record, everyone in this company knows you earned your position. If something happened between you two now, nobody would question it. Nothing is going to happen. Why not? You're both single adults. You clearly care about each other. The girls adore him. Because it's complicated, Claire said. Because I don't want to risk everything I've built here. Because I'm not ready to trust another man with my heart. Patricia's expression softened. Not all men are like your ex-husband. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. But knowing and feeling are different things. The evening progressed with dancing and conversation. Claire checked on the girls periodically. They were having a wonderful time with the other children, playing games and eating more sugar than they should. Around 9 o'clock, Claire stepped onto the hotel's outdoor terrace for fresh air. The city sparkled below, and the December cold felt refreshing after the warmth inside. Hiding from the party? Ethan's voice came from behind her. Claire turned to find him leaning against the doorway, hands in his pockets. He'd loosened his tie, and his maroon shirt was slightly rumpled from the dancing inside. "Just taking a break," she said. "It's been a good night." "It has." He joined her at the railing, maintaining a respectful distance. "The girls seem to be having fun." "They love it. Thank you for including families tonight. It means a lot to parents on staff. It was actually your suggestion in our last policy meeting." "You listened?" "I always listen to you." The words came out softer than perhaps he intended. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city. Claire was aware of every inch of space between them, of the warmth radiating from him despite the cold air. "Can I tell you something?" Ethan asked suddenly. "Of course." "That night in the parking lot when I first saw you, I thought you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen. Even crying, even at your lowest point, there was something about you that just—" He trailed off. "I know I'm not supposed to say things like that. Professional boundaries and all." Claire's heart hammered in her chest. "Ethan, let me finish." He turned to face her fully. "These past months, getting to know you, watching you rebuild your life, seeing you with your daughters, I've fallen completely in love with you. And I know the timing is terrible and the circumstances are complicated, but I can't keep pretending I feel nothing." Claire couldn't breathe. "I'm your employee." "I know. Which is why I've kept my distance. Which is why I haven't said anything until now." He smiled sadly. "But we're at a party, you look incredible, and I've had just enough champagne to be honest. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know the truth." "The truth is complicated," Claire whispered. "It usually is. The truth is I'm terrified. Trevor destroyed my ability to trust. Even though I know you're nothing like him, even though you've shown me nothing but kindness, there's a part of me that's waiting for the other shoe to drop. I understand that. The truth is also that somewhere along the way I started looking forward to seeing you every day. Started noticing when you smiled at something I said. Started wondering what it would be like if things were different." Claire took a shaky breath. "But I can't risk my job. I can't risk the stability my girls finally have. So even if I wanted to explore whatever this is between us, I can't." Ethan nodded slowly. Okay. You need time. You need space. You need to feel secure in your position and your life before you can think about anything else. I respect that." He stepped back toward the door. "The offer stands whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready. No pressure, no expectations. Just know that I'll be here." He went back inside, leaving Claire alone on the terrace with her racing thoughts and confused heart. She'd spent so long building walls to protect herself and her daughters. But what if those walls were keeping out something good? What if her fear of being hurt again was preventing her from having the kind of relationship she'd always dreamed of? Claire didn't have answers. But standing there in the cold December air, she realized that maybe, possibly, eventually she might want to find out. Inside, she found Nia and Zara ready to go home, sleepy and happy. As they left the party, Ethan was across the room laughing with employees. He caught Claire's eye and raised his glass slightly in farewell. She raised hers back, a small acknowledgement of the truth that had finally been spoken between them. Whatever happened next, at least they were being honest. And that felt like a step in the right direction. January brought a new year and a subtle shift in Claire's relationship with Ethan. After his confession at the holiday party, they'd both seemed to relax into something more honest. They were still professional at work, but outside the office, a genuine friendship had developed. Ethan started joining them for weekend activities occasionally. The science museum with the girls. Ice skating at the downtown rink. Simple things, no pressure, just spending time together. Claire watched him carefully during these outings, looking for signs of ulterior motives or impatience. She found none. He was simply present, engaged, making Nia and Zara laugh with terrible jokes and patient explanations of how things worked. "Mr. Ethan is funny," Zara declared one Saturday after he'd spent an hour teaching both girls chess. "Not like Daddy. Daddy always said we were too loud." "Mr. Ethan likes when we talk," Nia added. Claire's heart squeezed. Her daughters had already accepted him in a way they'd never accepted Trevor's attention. At work, Claire continued excelling. She'd implemented new recruitment strategies that cut hiring time by 30%. She'd restructured the benefits package to be more family-friendly, earning praise from employees across all departments. Patricia had told her she was being considered for HR director when Patricia retired in 2 years. Life was good. Stable. Everything she'd fought for. So why did she still wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, anxious that it would all disappear? "You're afraid of happiness," her new therapist told her during a session. Claire had finally been able to afford counseling with her improved salary. "You've associated stability with waiting for disaster. It's a trauma response to your marriage. How do I stop?" "You practice. You let yourself feel good things without immediately looking for what will go wrong. You trust that you've built something real." Claire tried. She really tried. In March, Harrison Tech held a big recruitment fair downtown. Claire organized the entire event, coordinating with local colleges and training programs. It was her most ambitious project yet. The day before the fair, she got a call from her apartment building. Pipe burst, severe water damage, unit uninhabitable for at least a week while repairs were made. Claire stood in the lobby of her office building, staring at her phone, feeling her carefully constructed stability crumble. Where would they stay? Hotels were expensive. She didn't have family nearby. Mrs. Chen's place was too small. "What's wrong?" Ethan appeared beside her, fresh from a meeting. Claire explained the situation, trying to keep her voice steady. "Stay at my place," he said immediately. "What?" "I have a guest house on my property. 3 bedrooms, fully furnished. You and the girls can stay there until your apartment is ready." "Ethan, I can't." "Why not?" "It's sitting empty. You need a place to stay." "This is the practical solution." "Because people will talk. Because it blurs lines we've been careful about." "So we'll be careful. The guest house is separate from my main house. You'll have complete privacy. Nobody at work needs to know unless you tell them." Claire wanted to say no. Every instinct screamed at her to find another solution, to maintain her independence. But she was exhausted from always being strong, always figuring everything out alone. "Just for a week," she said finally. "However long you need." That evening, Claire picked up the girls and drove to Ethan's address. She'd known he was wealthy, but seeing his property was different. A gated entrance, long driveway, sprawling main house with the guest house set back among trees. Everything was beautiful but not ostentatious. Ethan met them at the guest house with keys and groceries. "Fully stocked kitchen," he said. "Wi-Fi password is on the counter. I'm usually home by 7 if you need anything, but text me anytime." "Where's your house?" Nia asked, looking around. "Through those trees." Ethan pointed. "But this is your space. You don't have to worry about bothering me." He left them to settle in. The guest house was perfect. Clean, comfortable, with a sense of home despite being temporary. The girls chose bedrooms while Claire unpacked their emergency bags. That night, after putting Nia and Zara to bed in their temporary rooms, Claire sat on the guest house porch. Through the trees she could see lights from Ethan's main house. It felt surreal, being here in his space, crossing a boundary she'd been careful to maintain. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. "Everything okay?" Claire smiled and typed back, "More than okay. Thank you for this." "Anytime. And I mean that literally." They texted for a while about nothing important. Favorite movies, childhood memories, ridiculous things their coworkers had done. Easy conversation that felt natural despite the unusual circumstances. The week stretched into 2 as apartment repairs took longer than expected. Claire and the girls settled into a routine. Mornings were calm, getting ready for school and work. Evenings were peaceful in the guest house. But most surprising were the dinners. Ethan had invited them to eat at his house a few times. "I'm cooking anyway," he'd say. "Seems silly for both of us to make separate meals." Those dinners became Claire's favorite part of the day. Ethan would cook, something simple but delicious, while the girls did homework at his kitchen table. They'd eat together, talking about their days, laughing at the girls' stories. It felt like family in a way Claire's actual family had never felt. One evening, after the girls had fallen asleep watching a movie in his living room, Claire and Ethan sat on his back deck, sharing a bottle of wine. "This has been nice," Claire admitted. "Probably too nice." "Why too nice?" "Because I'm getting used to it. The girls are getting used to it. And when we go back to our apartment, this will end." "Does it have to end?" Ethan asked carefully. "We've talked about this. The complications, the professional boundaries. What if I told you I'd be willing to navigate those complications? What if I said I'd wait as long as you need to feel secure enough to try?" Claire looked at him in the soft porch lighting. "What? Why would you do that?" Because you're worth waiting for. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Because your daughters deserve to see their mother in a healthy relationship. Because when I picture my future now, you're in it. Ethan. Claire's voice caught. I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I'm just saying I'm here. Whenever you're ready. Claire reached across the space between their chairs and took his hand. He laced his fingers through hers, and they sat like that for a long time, holding hands and watching stars appear in the darkening sky. The next day, Claire's apartment was finally ready. The repairs were done, everything cleaned and restored. She should have been relieved to return to their own space. Instead, she felt sad. Do we have to go, Mama? Nia asked as they packed. I like it here. Me too, Zara agreed. Mr. Ethan is nice. And his house has that big tree we can climb. We have our own home, babies. That's important too. But as Claire drove away from Ethan's property that evening, watching it disappear in her rearview mirror, she wondered if maybe she was ready to stop running from good things. Maybe she was ready to start building towards something instead of just protecting what she had. Maybe, just maybe, she was ready to trust again. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and longer days. Claire had been at Harrison Tech for almost a year, and her life had transformed so completely she sometimes didn't recognize herself. The frightened woman crying in a parking lot felt like someone from another lifetime. Now she was the woman other employees came to for advice. The woman whose daughters were thriving in school and soccer and making friends. The woman who'd finally stopped looking over her shoulder, waiting for everything to fall apart. And, increasingly, the woman who couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. Since their 2 weeks at his guest house, something had shifted between them. The professional boundaries remained at work, but outside the office, they'd stopped pretending they were just friends. He took her to dinner. Real dates at nice restaurants where they talked for hours about everything and nothing. He brought her coffee in the mornings exactly how she liked it. He'd learned the girls' schedules, often suggesting activities he knew they'd enjoy. You know this is dating, right? Patricia had said to Claire one afternoon. You're dating your boss. Very romantically from what I hear. We're not dating. We're just spending time together. Claire. Honey. That's what dating is. Claire had laughed, but Patricia was right. They were dating. And she was happy. Genuinely, deeply happy in a way she'd forgotten was possible. The only thing holding her back was fear. Not fear of Ethan specifically, but fear of giving her heart to someone again. Fear of the girls getting too attached. Fear of losing everything if it went wrong. What's the worst that could happen? Her therapist asked during a session. He could turn out to be like Trevor. He could leave. He could hurt us. And what's the best that could happen? Claire paused. I could have the kind of partnership I always wanted. The girls could have a father figure who actually shows up for them. I could be happy. So it's a choice between potential pain and potential joy? When you put it that way, it sounds simple. It is simple. You're just making it complicated because complicated feels safer. That conversation stuck with Claire. Was she making it complicated because complicated felt safer? In May, Ethan invited her and the girls to his sister's house for a family barbecue. Claire had met his sister briefly at the holiday party, but this was different. This was meeting family as his girlfriend. Were they at the girlfriend/boyfriend stage? They'd never officially defined it. Stop overthinking, Ethan said when he picked them up. My sister is going to love you. And she's been dying to meet these two troublemakers. He ruffled Zara's hair affectionately. She swatted at his hand but was grinning. His sister's house was in the suburbs, full of kids and dogs and comfortable chaos. She greeted Claire with a warm hug. Finally, she said. Ethan has talked about you nonstop for months. I was beginning to think you were imaginary. I could say the same about you. The afternoon was easy and fun. The girls played with his sister's children while the adults talked and laughed. Ethan's sister pulled Claire aside at one point. I want to say something without being weird, she started. Okay. My brother hasn't brought anyone to family events in years. Not since his last serious relationship ended badly. The fact that you're here means you're important to him. We're still figuring things out, Claire said carefully. Good. Figure it out slowly. But also know that I've never seen him this happy. So whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That evening, driving home, the girls fell asleep in the back seat. Ethan reached across the console and took Claire's hand. Thank you for today, he said. I should be thanking you. Your family is wonderful. They are. And they loved you. He was quiet for a moment. Claire, can I ask you something? Of course. What are we doing here? Because from my perspective, I'm in a relationship with an amazing woman who I'm completely in love with. But I don't know if you see it the same way. Claire's heart raced. This was the moment. The defining conversation. I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared of trusting someone again. I'm scared of what happens if this doesn't work out. I'm scared that I'm putting my daughters at risk of getting hurt. Those are all valid fears. But I'm also tired of being scared. I'm tired of protecting myself from good things because of what bad things might happen. She squeezed his hand. You've shown me what a good man actually looks like. You've been patient and kind, and you've never pressured me for more than I could give. And I think I'm ready to stop being scared and start being brave. Ethan pulled into her apartment parking lot and turned to face her fully. What does being brave look like? It looks like saying yes when you ask if I want to be your girlfriend. It looks like introducing you to people as my boyfriend instead of my friend. It looks like trusting that you're not going to disappear when things get difficult. I'm not going anywhere, Ethan said firmly. I need you to know that. Whatever we're building here, I'm in it for the long term. Even with the complications? The girls, my job, the fact that we work together? Especially with those things. They're not complications, Claire. They're your life. And I want to be part of your life, all of it. Claire leaned across the console and kissed him. It was their first real kiss, soft and sweet and perfect. When they pulled apart, both were smiling. So we're doing this? Claire asked. If you want to. I want to. I'm terrified, but I want to. Being terrified is okay. I'm a little terrified too. Really? I'm in love with a woman who's been through hell and is still standing. That's intimidating. I don't want to mess this up. Then we won't mess it up. We'll be honest and careful and we'll figure it out together. Together? Ethan repeated. I like the sound of that. They carried the sleeping girls upstairs to Claire's apartment. After tucking them into bed, they stood in her small living room, suddenly shy now that everything had changed. I should go, Ethan said, though he made no move to leave. Or you could stay. Just to talk. Nothing else, just be here. So he stayed. They talked until late, curled up on her couch, making plans and sharing dreams and being honest about fears. It was the most intimate Claire had felt with anyone in years, and they were just talking. When Ethan finally left around midnight, he kissed her goodnight at the door. See you tomorrow, girlfriend, he said with a smile. See you tomorrow, boyfriend, Claire replied, loving how the word felt. After he left, Claire checked on the girls, both sleeping peacefully. She looked around her small apartment, thought about her job, considered her life as it was now versus a year ago. Everything was different. Everything was better. And for the first time since Trevor left, Claire wasn't just surviving. She was living. She was happy. She was in love. The future felt bright instead of terrifying, and that felt like the biggest victory of all. 14 months had passed since that night in the parking lot. Claire stood in front of the mirror in her new bedroom, adjusting her green dress and marveling at how much had changed. This bedroom in this house that Ethan had helped her buy but insisted be solely in her name. 3 bedrooms, a backyard for the girls, good schools nearby. She'd made the down payment with savings from her job, her promotion to HR director having come through 6 months earlier when Patricia retired. Mama, you look beautiful. Nia burst into the room, followed by Zara. Are you nervous? Zara asked. A little, Claire admitted. The girls knew she and Ethan were going on a special date tonight. They were spending the night at Ethan's sister's house, their first sleepover there. The girls had been excited for weeks. Don't be nervous, Nia said sagely. Mr. Ethan loves you. Everyone knows that. When are you going to marry him? Zara asked bluntly. Claire laughed. We're taking things slow. You've been dating for like a year. That's not slow. How do you even know these things? You're 7. Almost 8, both girls corrected simultaneously. There was a knock at the door. Ethan stood there in a dark blue suit, holding flowers. The sight of him still made Claire's heart skip. You look incredible, he said, handing her the bouquet. You clean up pretty well yourself. Mr. Ethan, are you going to ask Mama to marry you tonight? Nia asked with zero subtlety. Nia. Claire's face burned. Ethan just laughed. That's for me to know and you to find out. Now come on, let's get you 2 to Aunt Sarah's house before you give away all my secrets. They dropped the girls off, where Ethan's sister hugged Claire and whispered, Have the best night. You deserve this. Then they were alone in Ethan's car, driving toward downtown. Where are we going? Claire asked. You'll see. They pulled up to a familiar location. The restaurant where they'd had their first unconventional date, where he'd found her crying in the parking lot with her broken car and broken life. We're starting here? Claire asked, emotion catching in her throat. Full circle, Ethan said simply. They walked through the entrance where a year ago Claire had felt like a charity case. Tonight she felt like she belonged. They were seated at the same booth where they'd sat with Nia and Zara, where Ethan had patiently listened to two excited 6-year-olds and treated a desperate stranger with kindness. "Do you remember that night?" Ethan asked after they'd ordered. "Every detail. I was terrified and humiliated and certain my life was completely falling apart. I remember thinking you were the strongest person I'd ever seen. You were at your lowest point and you were still trying to protect your daughters, still maintaining your dignity, still surviving. I didn't feel strong. That's what made it real." Ethan reached across the table and took her hand. "Claire, this past year has been the best of my life. Getting to know you, watching you thrive, being part of your family, I've never been happier." "Me neither. You gave me my life back. You gave yourself your life back. I just helped with some logistics." He smiled. "But there's something I want to ask you, and I need you to hear me completely before you answer." Claire's heart started racing. Was this happening? Here. Now. I love you. I love your daughters. I love the life we're building together. And I want to make it official, but only if you're ready. There's no pressure, no timeline. If you need more time, that's completely okay. Ethan stood from his seat and moved to kneel beside the booth. Claire's hand went to her mouth as he pulled out a small velvet box. "Claire, will you marry me?" The restaurant had gone quiet. People were watching, smiling. The waiter who'd served them that first night stood nearby, grinning. Claire looked at Ethan, this man who'd shown her what partnership actually meant. Who'd been patient when she needed time. Who'd proven through actions, not words, that he was trustworthy. Who'd become not just her boyfriend but her best friend. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, absolutely yes." Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, a simple but beautiful design she never would have picked for herself, but that was absolutely perfect. Then he stood and kissed her while the restaurant applauded. When they finally pulled apart, both were crying and laughing. "The girls are going to lose their minds," Claire said. "They already know. I asked their permission last week." "You asked my 7-year-olds for permission to marry me?" "They're important. Their opinion matters." Ethan sat back in the booth, still holding her hand. "For the record, they said yes immediately and then spent 20 minutes planning the wedding." Of course they did. They ordered the same meals they'd had that first night. Pasta for Claire, something fancy for Ethan. They talked about the future, about wedding plans, about how they'd handle the professional situation at work now that they were engaged. "I've actually been thinking about that," Ethan said. "What if you didn't work at Harrison Tech anymore?" Claire's expression flickered with concern. "Hear me out," he continued quickly. "What if you started your own HR consulting firm? You could contract with us and other companies. Build your own business. I'd help with startup costs, but it would be yours. Completely independent of me. You've really thought about this. I want you to have everything you want. If that's staying at Harrison Tech, great. If it's building something of your own, even better. Either way, I'll support you." Claire considered it. Her own business. Being her own boss. The idea was thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. "Let me think about it," she said. "Take all the time you need." After dinner, they walked to the same parking spot where Ethan had found Claire that night. Her current car, reliable and paid off, sat where her old broken one had been. "I was so lost that night," Claire said quietly. "I thought my life was over. It wasn't over. It was just beginning. Because of you." "Because of you," Ethan corrected. "I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. Everything after that was all you. Your strength, your determination, your refusal to give up even when everything was falling apart." Claire leaned into him, feeling safe and loved and hopeful. "Where do we go from here?" "Anywhere we want. Together." They picked up the girls from his sister's house around 10. Nia and Zara were still awake, far too excited to sleep. "Did he ask?" Nia demanded the moment they walked in. Claire held up her hand, showing the ring. Both girls screamed and jumped around the living room. "We're going to have a dad," Zara said. "A real dad who shows up," Nia added. Ethan crouched down to their level. "I'm going to do my best to be what you deserve. I promise I'll always show up. I promise I'll always care. And I promise I'll love your mom and both of you for the rest of my life." "We know," Nia said simply, hugging him. "You already do all those things." They drove home that night, the four of them, singing along to the radio and talking about wedding plans. Claire looked back at her daughters in the back seat, then over at Ethan driving, and felt overwhelming gratitude. A year ago she'd been crying in a parking lot with $3 to her name, convinced her life was over. Tonight she was engaged to a man who loved her completely, with a career she'd built through her own merit. with daughters who were happy and thriving. The journey from that parking lot to this moment hadn't been easy. There had been legal battles and fear and moments where Claire wanted to give up. But she'd kept going. She'd accepted help when she needed it. She'd learned to trust again. And now finally she had the life she'd always dreamed of. Not because someone rescued her, but because she'd rescued herself with the support of someone who believed in her. That night, after the girls were asleep in their own rooms in their own house, Claire stood in her bedroom and thought about the future. Marriage. Maybe more children. Growing old with someone who actually loved her. Her phone buzzed. Text from Ethan. Thank you for saying yes. I love you. I love you too, she typed back. Thank you for being patient enough to wait for me. You were worth the wait. You'll always be worth the wait. Claire smiled and set down her phone. Tomorrow she'd start thinking about whether to pursue her own consulting business. Tomorrow she'd call her daughter's school and tell them about the engagement. Tomorrow she'd start planning a wedding. But tonight she'd just be grateful. For second chances. For kindness from strangers who became family. For the courage to trust again. 4 parking lot breakdowns that somehow led to the best thing that ever happened to her. Claire turned off the lights and went to sleep, happy and whole and finally truly home.